Start asking questions, really. Ask me something. I'll tell you all about it.
The first thing we would like to know is, how did it begin?
Well, back in my day, we didn't have the internet, so I bought a book.
That's how it began. I feel like I'm telling that story where I had to walk to school 100 miles when I tell that story, but I had a job working seasonally on a tugboat. It was an antique tugboat. We did fishing charters and stuff up the Pacific Northwest coast. So I had my winters off, and I wanted to do something that was, going to make me feel like I was learning something, but I also wanted to go someplace warm and get out of the cold. So I bought a book of international volunteer work, and I just started looking into where I could find in Central America. That kind of was a project I could get into. And I found Casa Guatemala, and it really called out to me. I liked the idea of working with indigenous families and working with children and being like in a sustainable project that was kind of like working to be self-sustainable. So I called up our representative at that time in Canada, who was living in Vancouver where I was, and he told me about it, and he was telling me all about everything that they were doing and kind of how it was all working. And I really liked the idea of it, so I decided that I would go down there and spend some time learning Spanish.
And this was in what year?
2001. This was 2000. This was the year 2000. A long, long time ago. But yeah, so I did that in January 2001. I came down here. So I jumped on a Greyhound bus from Vancouver to San Diego because I thought I would be able to find a bus or a boat, from there down the coast. I was going to try to sail my way down. But it ended up being the wrong season for people to do that. So I lived in San Diego for 2 weeks at a hostel, and I did a work trade where I was
Explain to people what a hostel is.
A hostel is here. It's
some people don't know what a hostel is.
Backpackers hotel. It's like a place where you share a room with many people on a bunk bed for limited amounts of money. So that was kind of the way to do it. And that's kind of what you do here in Guatemala as a backpacker. You're traveling around Guatemala, you're saving money, you're backpacking, and you sleep in a dormitory with, multiple other people, usually on bunk beds. And sometimes you don't know who's in the bunk above you or below you, but that's just how you go. So I did that, and I met a lady that taught me a little bit of Spanish. So for 2 weeks I had a Spanish class every day, and then I said, okay, I'm ready, and I jumped on a plane, and I came down here, and I showed up and was like, okay, I'm here, and what can I do? And they put me to work right away. I started off as a farmer on our farm.
So you actually worked on not reservation, but the land before.
Yeah, when I came to Guatemala, when I first got here, it just turned out that I was going to come for a long enough time that there was a lady leaving from the farm, and they're like, okay, well, you can work on our farm. I was like, sure. I used to go and see my cousin's horse farm when I was a kid, and so that apparently, was enough that I needed to do to be able to jump in there and start counting eggs and killing chickens and killing pigs and making sausages and making ham and really
From scratch?
From scratch, yeah, everything. So it was really interesting because I didn't speak a lot of Spanish. I had a very basic level, and I had to work with all of these Guatemalan men that were the farm workers. I wasn't necessarily working with the volunteers all day who were with the little kids. At that time, the volunteers took care of the toddlers. So they didn't actually have to practice their Spanish all the time. They were very minimal if they needed it. There were Spanish people there as well that spoke Spanish, but we had a good mix of people. But I think it really helped me to immerse myself and learn Spanish very quickly. There was a few workers that had gone to school at Casa Guatemala and had basic English skills, so we could work together as we killed chickens in solidarity, learning Spanish. And
so it was like an even trade.
It was an even trade.
Spanish,
exactly.
You teach them English, right?
You said when you came down, you were coming down for 3 months. You end up staying
originally
3 years.
That was the plan, and I stayed for 3 years.
So you stayed from 2001. I almost said 2017, but 2001 to 2004.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually
just trying to keep the timeline for it.
In 2003, I left for a little while. I went traveling because I originally thought I would do some backpacking and stuff like that. So
you
I
left Guatemala for a while.
Yep, I went to Honduras. I lived in Honduras on an island called Roatan for a while, and then I came back here again. But by that stage, after the first 3 months where I had to make the call and quit my job on the boat and say, hey, I'm going to stay here, I had taken on a lot more of a deeper role in what we were doing here. By that stage, I was running our store that we had in town, where we sold all of our produce and farm products. And at that time, we were just building here in Hotel Backpackers. This bar wasn't created yet. And so I worked there in the daytime, then I came back here and we worked at night, and kind of I got more of a hands-on approach to the administration side of things, and like, you know, the financial side and the business side, which to me was what I was really interested in doing.
Is that what you studied for? Is that why you were
I
interested?
hadn't studied at that time. Like I had graduated, I had worked my way through high school. I'd always kind of been working. So for me, I had that kind of brain anyways. But it made me decide that I wanted to study that. So I actually went back when I left here in 2004. I went back up to Canada, and
which is where you're originally from?
Which is where I'm originally from.
Right.
Yeah, I went.
What part?
I'm originally from Nova Scotia on the East Coast, but I slowly moved my way out to the West Coast. So I mostly call West Coast home now when I go home, but I still have lots of family on the East Coast, so I go back and forth between being here. But I decided that I would do a degree in nonprofit management, and I found the one school in Canada that offered that, which was Mount Royal University. It was in Calgary, which is super cold. So I went from living like on a Caribbean island and being here in like, you know, the rainforest to living in a town full of cowboys that was like minus 40 degrees centigrade most of the winter.
Yeah, your mom was telling me about the crazy winters.
Yeah, it's cold. It's very cold. So that was a bit of a change from being down here. I realized that I'd never wanted to have winter ever again. But
Polar opposites once you reach tropical weather.
yeah.
What made you like decide you were gonna take over as the new director?
It was never really a choice. I'd always kind of been here side by side working with our director, our founder, who kind of built this all up, working by her side. But when she came to a point where
What's her name? What's her name?
Angie Galdames, a wonderful, amazing woman who really was the visionary behind all this for 40 years and made this all happen up until, you know, just 2014 when she decided to retire. She retired for health reasons. And is still very much a big part of my life and what we're doing on a regular basis. But, you know, I was the person that was there. I think it was more just like it chose me rather than me choosing it. It was simply what I've always done and what I enjoy doing. So it made sense. It made sense that I was that person in line for the position more than anything else.
It was kind of like divine intervention.
Well, it's what I think I had been here for so long doing and working with her that it was like, you know, I was the person in line for the job. Definitely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was in line for the job. Sorry, the trucks make it kind of hard sometimes on the bridge, but it's also what I wanted to do. You know, that's why I went and did my degree in nonprofit management, so that I could kind of get that business side of a mindset and really kind of do the best that we could to kind of move this place forward and like see the potential of the organization.
Do you feel like you needed the degree in nonprofit management?
I think that you definitely gain a skill set in having a business degree when you're working in a nonprofit organization. You can be as heartfelt and sincere as you want to just convey the need.
That gets you in the door, definitely.
But you really need to know how to maneuver and be efficient and effective with the money, because this isn't like a business where I'm working on like a profit margin. No, I am actually taking donations and stretching them as far as I possibly can and getting the highest return on investment for what we have to do. So I think that even more so as a nonprofit, you have to be able to show that. But it's a bit of a catch-22 in the industry, because a lot of the times we're not either paid properly to be able to have that education behind us, or there's a lot of just good-hearted people that are trying to do something for the good of something as opposed to having the skill set behind it to go with it. So that's changing. It's definitely changed a lot in the last 2 decades.
You feel like discipline is a major skill set as well that you have to have as like a director and somebody involved?
Well, I don't even think that you have a choice. I think that it's just like you are always on and things are always happening, and it's not like you can just be like, nah, I'm not coming today. You know, you're always on. My phone is always on. There's never a time where I just like turn it off and be like, I'm done for the day. I'm separating my world. So you're always on. You're always waiting to see what happens, or you're always just kind of attached to what you're doing. So yeah, discipline, absolutely. I mean, I really think that you have to be a forward thinker. You have to be strategic and kind of like have a long-term vision of what you want to do, and know how to see that through to make sure that you're reaching your goals at the specific times that you're able to say, all right, okay, here we are now, we've done this, and you can't lose sight of the big picture, but you can't get overwhelmed in it either, which is really easy to do.
Explain that. Just like You don't even have to go into detail, just in the simplest
It's
form.
overwhelming. There is so much to do. There's always so much to do. You're
Right.
always going to find it when you're running. Like, it can be overwhelming. You can be like, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the teachers? How am I going to pay the staff? You know, and then you have like small scale things going on. Like, so-and-so's gotten in a fight with this person, and then, you know, you're going to have to deal with like
Personal life,
issues.
yeah.
And then, you know, you're always looking, and there's so many things that you can always be improving on, but you don't have the funds to do it. And then that becomes like something that can actually get you down. It's like, you know, you're struggling, you're going by, and you're just getting by, and you see all the potential, and you see all the things you want to do.
And it's like
but you're
right
not
there.
able to do them at
Yeah.
the time, so you just have to be like, you know what, I'm just going to slow down. I'm going to take a baby step approach to it. I am going to take every hurdle as you go.
You feel like that gives you more of a peace of mind?
I think it does give you more of a peace of mind. I think you'll go crazy elsewise if you just try to take it all in at once, and you just feel like you were drowning, and you'd be grasping at straws, and you'd be trying to do 17 things instead of one at a time.
At a time, right.
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, so I think it makes a big difference, just in your own personal balance of stuff, and taking on this kind of role. I think especially in my situation where it's not just a children's home where you have a school and a clinic and a home, so all the things that involves, you know, I mean, that's 60 people that you're hiring, that's all those kids, all their parents, all of their health, everything that you can possibly get, as well as people coming in from the outside as well just to use the clinic. We also have a hotel and a restaurant and, you know, an office in the city, and legal things that we have to make sure that we're up to date with. So it's a lot to take on. It's a lot to learn in a different language, in a different culture, in a different
Right.
country, that it's completely different from the things that I learned as far as Canadian nonprofit law, for example, or taxes, or any of the things that we learned in school.
It's like you were a baby when you decided to come here.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you
I
had to
think I've
grow
had
up.
a long time to learn in these years that I've been here, and kind of be watching from not from a distance, but like, you know, from the sides, up until I've had to take it on myself, and I've tried to take it on in a way that I really involved a lot of the people around me, so that I'm not just kind of being that taking it all on my own kind of thing, where
Right.
I just,
No I in team.
yeah, exactly. Like, it's just like, have a good team, rely on that team, believe in that team,
Right.
and then, you know, work together as we move forward.
Just basically